doing its work properly and within the laws. And then 2 is that sensitization component. My office does the work of sensitization, go on talk shows, and also sensitizing the police officers themselves on their rights. Those rights will mean and include the rights of police officers, because police officers also sometimes face issues of violation against themselves. So this is not something new. Now, as regards complaints against police officers or police as an organization, Section 70 of the Police Act, this book here, this statute, this Act of Parliament, gives any member of public to complain against police. And maybe for avoidance of doubt, I may read you the section. That any person is entitled without prejudice to any other legal means of redress available to him or her to make a written complaint as to A, any instance of bribery, corruption, oppression, or intimidation by a police officer. Are you marking it? B, any neglect or non-performance of his or her duties by a police officer. C, any other misconduct by a police officer. So I think all that you are saying falls amongst any of these.
Yes.
Then subsection 2 is that a complaint made under section 1A shall be addressed to the most senior police officer in charge of the district or unit to which the police officer against whom the complaint is made is stationed, or to the Inspector General of Police. So here is telling you the forum, who, where you complain, how. The complaint must be in writing. It must be reduced in writing. You may go and complain orally, but the officer who is there is supposed to write it so that it is documented. And it has to be to a senior. Yesterday we were saying, if a police officer or Mr. Hrcu has done something wrong as a regional legal, where do you go? I think the most senior officer is going to be who? The RPC. So you are going to complain against the officer. Or they are saying to the Inspector General of Police. Now, a complaint made under subsection 1B or C shall be made to senior police officer. Now, the police officer to whom a complaint is made under subsection 2 or 3 shall, on receiving the written complaint, cause a full and impartial investigation to be made. Now, this is the issue of evidence. Because once you make a complaint, there must be justification. You must back up your complaint. So, this officer is supposed to investigate into this complaint. That if somebody says, Mr. Hrcu assaulted me, is it true? So, if Hrcu assaulted somebody, who will investigate this case? The CID to cause investigation in this case. Then he has to send a report of his or her opinion and conclusion of the person making the complaint. Now, accountability. If you make a complaint, this officer must give you a feedback, the findings of his investigation. That this person, we took him to court. This person, we took him to disciplinary court, because police has its disciplinary court. This case, you know, maybe I found there was no evidence in your allegation. So he has to furnish this report. And then take such other action on the complaint as the circumstances may require. So he has the discretion to say this complaint is going to CID, it's a criminal case. Or this case is going to PSU. Or this case is that one which is going to Uganda Human Rights Commission. So it will depend on the circumstances of the case. Now, there's another clause here, which the lawmaker thought was going to be important. That any person who knowingly makes a false or malicious complaint under this section commits an offense and is liable or on conviction to imprisonment not exceeding 6 months or to a fine not exceeding 50,000 shillings or both. So, you understand that you may make a complaint which may be injurious or may be biased. And a police officer is also a human being. is also protected under the law, the human rights we are talking about. Now, if you make a complaint which is baseless, which is frivolous, which is malicious, and has no justification, then the lawmaker is trying to protect that the police officer also has a remedy against you in that you commit an offense. So here, normally we don't emphasize, we tend to discourage that people should not come out because they may fail to prove their cases. But that is the law. The law is saying you should not make a malicious complaint. You make something which you really know. Mr. Yuku did not perform his duty. Or, yeah. So these are some of the things as legal. Yesterday, we were telling you one of your duties is to act within the law. It's not just enough to make complaints and then you don't even turn up. Because you make a complaint and then they say give us evidence and you don't turn up. So there is the provision. So as far as the police force as an institution is concerned, there is a law called the Government Proceedings Act. It says that all suits for and against the government is against the Attorney General. So when you want to sue the police force, then you will have to sue you are now suing the government. Because police force is not a legal person. It's the Attorney General that you can. And in our department, we normally handle very many issues where there are suits against the Attorney General because of actions of. And for your information, if a police officer does something on his own, even now the Attorney General is excluding himself and saying, no, you face yourself. Then as regards complaints of crime, especially like torture, you know the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act is saying that whoever tortures anybody will be personally liable. So what I want to encourage you people is that if there are these issues, you have to bring them as the law is saying. Don't remain there grumbling. Because if we remain grumbling, we shall always be bringing them in these meetings and we shall not solve problems. Let these reports be made. As far as crime is concerned, those cases are reported direct. A crime must be reported directly. And CID is to investigate. If they don't investigate, there are internal checks. The PSU. Have you ever heard of PSU? Yeah. Professional Standard Unit. And we have it at the region. The PSU is there. Even in my office, I also call for files. Sometimes I discuss with the state attorney about certain cases. A case may be having evidence, but sometimes, because maybe work pressure, you will find that the file is closed, but you read it and say, I think there is some evidence. There is some iota of evidence. And at times, these things are reviewed and corrected. PSU, I've said Uganda Human Rights Commission, which I work hand in hand with them. And actually, they will always ask the DPCs to respond to certain complaints. And they give us copies of that. Sometimes when we study, we see components of criminal offenses, components of disciplinary offenses, where we also take action. But of course, the Police Act says once there is criminal and disciplinary offense falling together, then criminal offenses take precedence. I think this is even true throughout public service, that if a public official has a matter which has both criminal and disciplinary, the criminal offense must be handled first. Then the disciplinary offenses take place afterwards. So these are some of the things. So when a complaint is at the police post and the OC is somebody who is, you can also raise with OC. If it fails, then you come to the district. Then if it fails the district, the RPC. The RPC, police headquarters, the Inspector General of Police. So these things are just one. Now, for purpose of communication, I'm going to give you my number. This is my official line. 0716-08-666-4. Then MTN 0772-573345. For WhatsApp purposes, if there's any document to be shared, 0756-8 58,463, 461. I think these numbers are not going to be abused for other purposes, but for official purposes, and you can consult. So, if there's any question, remark, addition, subtraction.
About the email.
The email, you want it? Yeah, the email is oyusasim@gmail.com. So that is what I would say in the interest of time, because ordinarily some of the trainings normally they slot us in the issue of code of conduct. I would have gone through the code of conduct of the police, and then you would appreciate very well what is expected of police officers. We have a very strong code of conduct, and which is supposed to be enforced. And one of our duties is to enforce discipline. That's why I review disciplinary proceedings, especially to see there's a due process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. There's one request here that you've told us where to go. We only requested that you would write us something small, that if you begin from here, in case of anything, this is where you have to go. You've explained verbally, but we would also want to take notes as human rights defenders.
Yeah, that's why.
And there's one gap that, thank you so much for the sensitization always, but sometime back we had the community policing that would really would bridge that gap between the community and the police. But in our districts we don't have that. And that's why most cases we fail to differentiate between the criminal cases and the disciplinary cases. And that's why this other abuse of free what? Like if one has committed an offense and one wants to bring out a criminal, you don't need to pay him anything. So some people are not aware. We only request that when you people go back to your offices, organize and let's really have the community policing and we had it last those days. Thank you.
Which district is that?
Kiriandongo.
You don't have a CL?
We don't see him or her.
He retired.
I think that's it.